All right, seventh grade. So for today, step one or decision one that you have to make is decide if you want your paper to go horizontally like this or vertically. Okay, so whatever you think will best represent your word that you have chosen. Okay, so I'm gonna keep mine horizontal, and then the next decision that you're going to have to make is you're going to have to decide where you want your word on your paper. Okay, so for example, you can make it go horizontally, you can make it go on the diagonal, you can do a variety of ways. You can even kind of curve your letters, so that's a possibility. So I'll show you how to do sort of a straight one, and then I'll flip my paper over and show you a curved option. For the straight one, let's say you just want, I don't know, your word at the top of your paper. That's fine. You are going to lightly trace either side of the ruler. So we figured out last block that the width of the ruler is about 1.5 inches or so, and that's a perfect width for us to fit 5 to 7 letters on our paper. All right, so I traced that lightly and we are good to go. Okay, so that's where I want my word. So what I'm doing is I'm creating my, starting to create my block for my block letters. Okay, so let me move my paper down a little bit so y'all can see it. Okay, from here, what I'm gonna go ahead and do is I am going to decide where I want my blocks, or how I want my blocks to go. Okay, so what I'm gonna go ahead and do is I am going to divide my space, my long space here, into about 1 inch or so, about 1 inch section. Okay, so I am going to line up my ruler with the end of the paper, and every inch mark I'm going to put a little line. So I've lined up my ruler with the bottom part of my line here, and at every inch mark I'm gonna put a little notch right on that line. Okay, so I've got about 9 inches here, and I'm gonna do the exact same thing at the top. So I'm gonna line up my ruler, and right at that top of that line, every inch mark, I'm gonna put a little tiny notch. Okay, so these notches at the top and the bottom match one another because they're all 1 inch apart. From there, I'm gonna create my vertical lines. So I'm gonna go ahead and line up my ruler with the top notch and the bottom notch, and very lightly, I'm just gonna connect the dots. This is gonna give me my blocks in which to create my block letters. I'm gonna keep these light because most likely I'm going to use these lines and then erase them later. This is what I have so far. Now, what this has allowed for is it's allowed for about 9 1-inch spaces. Okay, most of us are working with words that are in the ballpark of 5 to 7 letters. All right, so what this means is maybe I don't need to use, if my word is only 5 letters, for example, I might not need to use, 1 or 2 of these at the beginning or the end. All right, so you don't necessarily have to start your first letter all the way over here on the left. You can move it in one. Okay, so for example, let's say my word is, I don't know, crazy. All right, the first thing, C-R-A-Z-Y. Yep, okay, so 5 letters, and I have 9 spaces. So maybe I don't use the first 2. Again, you are welcome to use these if your word is 7 letters. But I'm gonna start mine here. Now, just as a reminder, I always like to very lightly map out my letters before I begin. Because we're doing block letters, we need to make sure that they use the block, okay? So that they use touch top, bottom, side, side of the block. So I sketched that out really super lightly. Let me back it up. really super lightly, I always map mine out first so I can make sure that I'm using the entire block, okay? They have to be capital letters. They have to be even width and use the ruler where applicable, okay? So for example, my block letter C is a curved shape. So I'm gonna go ahead and just make sure that it's capital, that it's touching top, bottom, side, and side. And I'm going to very lightly sketch it so that it's even thickness. Okay, what that means is it shouldn't be thinner here and thicker here. It should be the same thickness throughout. I'm keeping my lines really, really super light in case I need to erase it. Okay, right now this looks pretty well crafted overall. It touches top, bottom, side, side. It is a capital letter. I could trace over that and make it a little bit darker, but I'm gonna go ahead and move on. All right, now for the block letter R, I do have a curve, but I also have a straightaway with that. Okay, so what I'm gonna go ahead and do, I'm gonna try and match the thickness of this first letter, and I'm gonna go ahead and use the entire block to create my letter. So it's a capital letter. I'm gonna try and make sure it's even thickness throughout, so I'm gonna touch top, bottom, side, side. This curved part, gonna make sure that it touches where it's supposed to, and then I'm going to go ahead and make sure this opening for the R, that this curved part is even thickness throughout. All right. So I use my ruler where applicable, capital letter, even thickness throughout. Okay, these two kind of match. All right, now a couple of things. Once I have done all of my block letters for this, I can go ahead and erase any lines I don't need. Okay, so for example, I can come back if I drew this lightly, erase my lines here. And the next thing I'm gonna go ahead and do, let me go ahead and zoom out, is I get to, at this point, decide what category of op art I am interested in, okay? So basically I have to figure out how I'm going to subdivide my background, all right? So if I'm going to do category 1, category 2, or category 3, or level 1, 2, or 3, does not matter. So at this point, I am going to decide what I want my background to look like, okay, in order to make this feel crazy, okay? So maybe I'm just doing the simple one, just using my ruler to subdivide. These background lines will come behind my word. So again, use your ruler where applicable. Okay, so I'm dividing the background according to those levels. Now, really briefly, I just want to share with you how to do a curved option, okay? So let's say I want my word to kind of go, I don't know, sort of like this across my page. I'm gonna go ahead and just using the width of the ruler. Okay, so the width of the ruler is like basically 1.5 inches. So I'm gonna put a mark here and a mark here. Let's say I want it to start, I wanna start my word over here. Tracing about 1.5 inches. And I can go ahead and just ballpark sketch where about where I want this to go and just what thickness I think it should be. Okay, once I sketch it out, I'm going to double check that the parts of it are roughly 1.5 inches. You can also put these little notches here ahead of time and connect your dots, that's fine. So I just want this to be about the same thickness throughout. So here, yep, I did it pretty well. Okay. And then once I have this, I can then subdivide it the same way. Okay. Doing a curve shape is a little bit harder, but you can totally do it. Okay. So basically every inch, I'm gonna put a little notch. Okay, and I would go all the way down. At the top, I would do the same thing. So every inch, put a little notch. All right. So see how I did that top and bottom, every inch, and then lightly connecting the dots. All right. So I think you get the idea. Okay. So go ahead and get started on that.